Hello everybody, welcome to today's video. Today we are going to be making a lemon cup coaster. Also, because of something I said in yesterday's video, I wanted to show you this. This is something that I made a long time ago and then I never finished. But you can see where all of my increases are. This is kind of what I meant by being able to read what you're looking at. You can physically see where the increased stitches are. So today's coaster is going to be a little bit trickier than yesterday's, but still pretty easy. We're going to start with white to do a white little center. We're going to wrap the tail over the working yarn and then come up from underneath it and pull the working yarn through. And make sure it's tight enough but not super snug. That way you can very easily pull your hook in or out. And then you're going to yarn over, bring the yarn up around the back, over the top, and down the front. And there's lots of different ways people hold their yarn in their hand. You gotta find something that's comfortable for you. I was just showing you how I hold mine. So we're gonna go ahead and make, 4 or 5 little slip stitches. The bigger your hook is, the bigger you're gonna want the center of these stitches to be. You're gonna find your first stitch, go up underneath it, and then you're gonna slip stitch right through it. Keeping your hook pointed down towards the little pointy part of our teardrop stitches. That way it can come through easily. Do a chain stitch, or yeah, it's a chain one. Just so we can get the first stitch started without it being too tight on the circle. That way when we tie off at the end of this round, it'll be more seamless. There won't be a little divot. And we're gonna go around and do 8 single stitches. And I'm keeping my tail tucked in while I go around. So you're gonna go through the center, yarn over. Always bring the yarn across the front. Yarn over, pull through just the center, and then yarn over and pull through both stitches. Make sure you count every round how many stitches you have to make sure that you're sticking close to the pattern. I'm starting with 8 stitches today, unlike my stupid 6 stitches yesterday, which messed me up a little bit. Go under your first stitch and just pull through all the way. Tie off a little knot. Pull it all the way through, and then you can tuck it in if you want, or you can hold the tail while you work the next color. I'm gonna go ahead and get it out of the way so I don't have to worry about it. So I'm just weaving it through my stitches. Now I've got a nice clean circle, and I can see where my knot was. So then I'm gonna stick my hook right in the stitch before the knot to the right of it, the last stitch that we did. And I'm gonna take my second color And I'm not making any knots, but I'm gonna loop it through. And I'm gonna wrap both the working yarn and the tail through, just to kind of knot it, just to secure it in place. And then I'm gonna work around the tail. This is why I tucked in the previous one, because I've already got this tail I gotta worry about. And in every single stitch, we're gonna do 2 single stitches. Once you've gotten 2 single stitches in every stitch, count them and make sure that you have 16 stitches now. This is not including the little slip stitch that we did to get this row started. And then in this next row, we're gonna start our fancy little pattern where we're gonna do 1 single and then 2 singles, and then 1 single and then 2 singles. If you remember this from yesterday, it's a fun little pattern. It's kind of what I showed you at the very beginning of the video with that project that I did a long time ago, and how big it got and how it kind of got a little pointy, and you can see chickens and you can see where all of my 2 single stitches are. So we're gonna do 1 single stitch, and then in the next stitch we're gonna do 2 single stitches. This is our 3rd row, but it is our 1st row of this pattern, so we're only doing the 1 single stitch and then the 2. Once we get into the next row, our 4th row total, it'll be the 2nd row of this little pattern, and we'll have 2, 1 single stitch, 1 single stitch, and then 2 single stitches. And then once we're in the 3rd row of this pattern, which is the 5th row total, we'll have 1 single stitch, 1 single stitch, 1 single stitch, and then 2 single stitches. Every single row, the increased stitches will line up, and we started with 8, so that's how many increases we have in every single row. Once your coaster is as big as you want it, or almost as big as you want it, I should say, go ahead and cut the yellow. Remember, we're gonna have 2 more rows after this, and I made mine, I think, 1 row too big, but next we're gonna do a row of white following the same pattern, and then another row of yellow for the skin of the lemon. I almost said onion. Remember, you can choose to tuck in your tail every time you finish a color if you want, and going along the stitches you just done will make it more seamless. It won't cut through the other colors if you, like in my first video, how I went to the center because it was the same color. Things usually end up being reversible. You can use either side if you tuck in this way. It's a lot neater. You can leave it like this if you want, or if you want, you can add these little lines in the fruit. And I like taking them up to each of the points, and I'm not gonna do all 8 points. I'm only gonna do 4 of the points, but you can do all 8 if you want. I just thought it looked a little too busy. So go up through the center, and then go to the edge of the white row, and then up through the center, and then to the edge of the white row, then up to the center, and to the edge of the white, up the center, and to the edge of the white. And then once you're done, you can tie them in the middle, being very careful not to pull on the strings too much because that'll warp your circle. Or you could tuck each of the individual strings in. I'm gonna go ahead and tuck this string through to the other side, and then I'm going to tuck these in through this, through the stitches of my little white circle in the center. For some reason, I struggled with this way too much. I don't know why. I kept my stitches loose, and I think it's just because this particular white yarn was just difficult to work with. If you have kind of a cheap yarn, you'll see that each of the strands of the yarn like to come loose, and it just makes it difficult to work with. So you can see I made my lemon one row bigger than my red apple. I could undo the red and then add another row of the tan and then go back around it with the red. I'm not worried about them being the same size. If you wanted to follow a pattern, you can write down specifically how many rows you want for each of your fruit, that way you don't mess up. Like you can write down, start with 8, do the increase row, and then have a total of, you know, say 6 rows or something. Anyway, I hope your projects are going well. I would love to see them on social media. I hope you have a wonderful day and happy crafting.